Welcome to the Annie Jennings PR Real Stories of Success podcast series. Annie Jennings is the creator of the most powerful radio campaign in the country, where you are booked on high-impact shows in top markets, as well as our famous pay-for-placement national television, print, and online media program, where she offers guaranteed deliverables. My name is Stacey Emerald Kaufman. I'm the radio director for Annie. We are sharing another real story of success to give listeners an inside look into what it's like to work with Annie Jennings PR. And today we're joined by Robin L. Silverman, author of Feathers, 50 Things You Can Do in 50 Seconds or Less to Lighten Up and Get Yourself Free. She is the Chief Energy Officer of Publicity, LLC, an organization dedicated to helping people achieve greater happiness and peace. And with us during her 12-interview guaranteed radio campaign, Robin was heard on over 1,200 stations. This includes big media brands such as Fox News Radio, SiriusXM, CBS Radio, iHeart Media, and more. Top stations in major markets, New York, San Francisco, Seattle, San Diego, and, of course, a wonderful in-studio appearance in her local Minneapolis WCCO. So, Robin, thank you for joining us.
It's great to be with you, Stacey.
Well, it's great to have you. Let's talk about from the beginning. What was it that had you decide to work with Annie Jennings PR? You spoke with her. Annie, of course, talks to everybody personally. What was it that clinched it? What made you sign on with her?
Well, I knew Annie from years ago when I was a professional public speaker. And she was actually just getting her business going at that time, but I liked her enormously, love her energy. I mean, I think that's part of it. She truly has a passion and a commitment to her authors. And I always told myself that, should I be in a position to want to promote a book nationally, she would be the one to call. So when I was looking, to promote Feathers, I actually considered 3 different PR agencies. But in the end, I chose Annie for several reasons. Number one, again, it was just, the energy of talking to her on the phone. She sweeps you up in the idea of, this is really going to work. It's going to be great. It's going to be this and that. So just knowing that was part of it. But the thing that clinched it for me was the fact that, your placement is guaranteed, and no other public relations agency I talked to would guarantee me any kind of results. Only Annie Jennings.
Yeah, absolutely. We love working that way. We want, of course, you to know what you're doing and what you're getting. And for us, it's the only way to do it. We don't believe in the word TRY. Actually, Annie doesn't even let us say the word. We get demerits if we say it. So that is something that we truly believe in and are happy that it was a deal maker for you. Now, what was your experience working with the radio team? Of course, I'm part of that, as well as Jason, our media coach and trainer. And how did you feel the campaign? Did it exceed expectations? What was the feeling surrounding it?
Well, again, the choice of Annie Jennings was the fact that these were all going to be in top 50 markets. So, yes, it exceeded my expectation on a number of levels, Stacey, including the fact that not only was it the top 50 markets, but that I was truly heard. In other words, even the engagement on WCCO, I had mentioned to Jason that Jordana Green was one of my very, very favorite radio personalities, and I was in the studio with Jordana for a 20-minute interview, which at one point. But more than that, it really was a situation where what I do and what this book is about is really highly specialized. So you understood. You listened, you understood, you followed through, you were incredibly responsive. In other words, I knew that if I reached out to you, probably within a couple of hours at the most, I would get an answer. And again, what happened was you did your work so well that you went above and beyond my expectations. I was only supposed to get 12 interviews. I think I ended up with like 15. I stopped counting after 12, but the fact of the matter is that once you had made the contact and people called you back, you scheduled them for me anyway. So there was none of this, well, we fulfilled our part of the contract, so therefore we're done. Okay. So you never treated me like just a client with a fistful of money. It was always kind of, we're in this together. We can make something good happen, not only for you, but for your readers, for the audiences of these radio stations. So I honestly felt that you had my best interest at heart and the best interests of the radio stations at heart, which is probably why they take your calls.
Yeah, absolutely. We, of course, have a long history and very deep relationships, of course, in all media, but with radio, I've worked with Annie for over 17 years. Annie's been in business for like 25. So, yes,
Hmm.
it's been a long time, great relationships, lots of trust there, and we keep on working and preparing you to be the best guest that you can be. Can you talk a little bit about the media coaching and training that you received? That is included, unlimited, with the radio campaign.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that I used to be a member of the media. So and plus I had promoted other books previously in my career, so I was thinking, oh, I don't really need this. Except that when Jason and I, did our training together, he caught me on a stumble that I really hadn't thought about, which at the time of my campaign was during the political season, and I had to be very careful to catch myself. So I was really grateful for the training that he had done with me beforehand. The other piece is that by working with him, I was able to clarify a fairly complex message and get it down into bullet points. And that's another, thing that I learned is you have to be clear, concise, and consistent. Every single radio review that you do, interview that you do has to be clear, concise, and consistent.
And do you feel like, I think you may have touched upon this a little bit, but the campaign, of course, was personalized. You mentioned that you were heard and you were taken care of as if we knew you, right? Like you were almost a
Mhm.
friend, not some stranger with a checkbook.
Yeah, and as I said, what was also very, very nice was that when I was email, it didn't matter if it was an email, a phone call, a follow through. You were very good about reaching me, or your team was very good about reaching me, even in the middle of a day. In other words, an opportunity came up. They made sure that I never missed an opportunity. So I really, and again, very flexible around my schedule. I have a full time job. So this was not always easy to do. I tried to be as upfront as I could be about my schedule, but of course things change. But you were wonderful about flexing with my schedule. You were wonderful about, again, reaching out to me, making sure that I had every opportunity that was out there for me, that I knew about it. I could turn it down if I wanted. But the fact of the matter is that, again, it was exceeding my expectations all the way through. And even the final one, which turned out to be the best one because it was the one that was on the most radio stations, it had been canceled by the producer numerous times for internal reasons on their part. And yet Jason stayed with it, because I kept saying to him, this is so important to me. I know this woman will understand, the message I'm trying to do. He stayed with it. We landed it. She was thrilled. The host was thrilled. I was thrilled. And, I think in the end, that's probably going to be the best one of the bunch. So again, it was one of those things, where you could have said, "Hey, we're done. Contract's full. We really don't owe this to you," but you didn't do that. You treated me like a friend.
And now, in terms of the overall experience with the radio campaign and how it has kind of helped you build up your media bio, how are you using it in terms of leveraging? Are you putting it in any of your marketing materials as you're putting yourself out there through social media, on your website? How has it helped you? And then, in terms of book sales, I know you mentioned that you did experience some.
Yeah. So as I said, we were not promoting my website. When we did the campaign, we were promoting the book. So we sold a couple hundred copies. In other words, I don't think that these campaigns turn you into a bestseller just from the standpoint that people are often driving. They don't always remember the name of the guest or the name of the book. But what happens is that, yes, I am building a media page just for the connections, for the connections to the interviews themselves. So it will be on my website. I will be promoting it to my clients. It is good for social media. I've already been tweeting and Facebooking that, I was on Danielle Lynn's show, for instance. So I think that's, those things are very, very important. But I do think it's important, particularly for authors, to go into this with their eyes wide open, that this is a piece of something larger. And as much as Annie Jennings and your team can do for an author, it's important to realize you have to bring your A game to the table. This is not a magic wand. Okay, this is one of this, but this is a very critical piece in telling the world who you are and what you bring.
Yeah, absolutely. That is. That is really an important message to get out there. There are so many tools in the marketing toolbox, we always like to say, or spokes in the marketing wheel. So absolutely, you need to, of course, help and support what we're doing with what you're doing as well, and you're doing a great job of that. Now, finally, Robin, if someone is on the fence and they're thinking, should I work with Annie Jennings or should I not work with Annie Jennings? Is this a good investment? What would you say to them?
I would say run, don't walk to Annie Jennings. Again, I compare you to some of the other proposals I got from some of the other publicity agencies. They were all willing to take in my message, to consider it, to, quote, do their best. One of them actually said, well, we're just going to start you in the local market. In other words, let's just think small and hope that because you're not already famous that a few people will write about you on their blogs. And it was like, really? And for this, you want that money? So, for the investment that I made with Annie Jennings to get the exposure that I did, all right, and the credibility that I gained and that will be on my website as a result, I would say to anyone who is trying to make a national impression that this absolutely has to be the very first thing you do. Whatever you do after that is fine, or whatever you do in addition to that is fine, but make this the very first thing you do. And as I've told you, Stacey, is that as soon as my business continues to grow, I'm going to be back and back and back and back and back.
Robin, and we will gladly have you, because not only is it, us doing our job, but it's also a client, an author, an expert that is willing to buy in to our tried and true process. And you were exactly that. And you were also a wonderful joy to work with. And I just want to let our listeners know that you can learn much, much more about Robin Silverman on her website, which is Fullistic.com, and that's Fullistic, Fullistic.com. Again, author of Feathers, 50 Things You Can Do in 50 Seconds or Less to Lighten Up and Set Yourself Free. And it's a great book. It's a beautiful book. We love it here in the office. We use it. We pick it up. We pick up the feather. We look at something. It's helpful if we ever have any stress, anything like that. The book is fabulous. So, Robin, thank you for allowing us to help share your message and, of course, get the book in the hands of people that need it. And we all do, right? Stress is everywhere.
Yeah, I was going to say it opens up your energetic field and really gets some fun surprises going. But really, Stacey, thanks to you and Jason and Annie and the team, for brilliant work. And as I said, I think the most, the message I would leave your listeners with from my end would just be that the reason you are as good as you are is because you are as sincere, authentic, and hardworking as you are. So the values and ethics of your company are astonishing. And believe me, I have talked to other authors who have been desperately disappointed in their PR agencies. And so the fact is that, I just can't say enough good about who you are and how you work and what you stand for and what you try to do on both sides of the fence. In other words, for your clients, but then also for your partners, on the air.
Robin, thank you so much. That was really, really, we love hearing that. It's what we do. See, I almost said try. Do you see that? And I stopped myself. I've been trained.
Don't do that.
We do it.
That's right. You sure do it. You do
we
do it.
We do it. That's right. That's what we do every day. Our mission statement is actually for the betterment of all. That's it. 5 really simple words. And that's what we live by every day. So thank you again. We really appreciate it. And I know we'll be seeing you soon.
Okay. Very good. Thanks so much.
And this podcast is presented by Annie Jennings of the national publicity firm Annie Jennings PR, the creator of Jennings Wire Online Magazine, as well as the Elite Wire Online Magazine. For more information on how you too can experience national media success and guaranteed deliverables, please visit AnnieJenningsPR.com.